Okay, hello everyone, I'm Salar and this is part 13 from my tutorial, and in this part I want to give you a brief introduction. About debugging with GNU Debugger. Okay, and I don't want to give you a lot of information about debugging because if you wanna to find out what's debugging, you should have a lot of information, for example, about assembly programming, memory structure in your computer architecture, and architecture of your processor, and a lot of other informations. And because I will give you these informations in next parts, in this part I just wanted to give you a brief introduction about debugging. Okay, a brief introduction about debugging. But before that, in previous section, in part 12, I give you some information about functions in GDB. It's functions about GNU make. Okay, we have a project like this and we have a make file, but I forgot to talk about include. Okay, include perspective. You can include some files in your make file. Okay, I don't want to talk about that, and you can find about include in GNU make documentation. Okay, so I recommend you to study about include in make file. But return to GDB. Okay, what's GDB? GDB. GDB. It's GNU debugger. Okay, it's a debugger from GNU, and you may have seen debugging in some IDEs, for example, in Eclipse or Visual Studio and other IDEs, and you know that debugging is an important part of your programming. Okay, important part of your programming, and debugging is nightmare of a lot of programmers, because many of time you have problem and bug in your code, and you should find that. And if you have a better information about debugger, you can have better debugging. Okay, so knowing about debugging and debugger is so important. But what is our tools for debugging in Linux? It's GDB, like GDB, and it's a debugger from GNU make. And if you have GCC in your operating system, you will have GDB. I have GDB, and let's just see the version. Okay, I have GDB, GNU debugger from GNU, and you can debug your programs with GDB. But before using GDB, I have a very good recommendation for you. Debugging in terminal is in the command line environment like terminal in Linux is much harder than debugging in an IDE, in a graphical IDE, because a graphical IDE is a more interactive and much better environment for debugging. But I recommend you to first search for Gdb Dashboard. Okay, Gdb Dashboard. Open that in GitHub, and let's open GitHub. Okay, and download this file. Okay, download this file. It's a suitable file, and you can download that and add to your home user directory. Okay, add to your home user directory, add here. But with this, when you download and copy that in your home directory, you will have this environment in your terminal when you debug your program. Okay, it's a more interactive and beautiful environment for debugging. Okay, with this command wget for downloading some file and put it in your home directory, this file. You can have more interactive environment in your terminal. Okay, let's do run that. Paste it here and press enter. Okay, and now as you can see, it has a dot in the first of file name. Okay, the first of file name is a dot, so it's a hidden file. Okay, if you want to show hidden file, right click and show hidden file. Okay, now you have Gdb init. Okay, you have Gdb init and it's a config file for your Gdb. It's not mandatory to download and use this file, and you can and don't use this file, and you don't have to use this file, but it's better to use that, and I recommend to use that. Okay, so after that, let's talk about Gdb. Before that, let's open my make file. Cd to project. I have a make file, and let's open my make file. If you want to debug your code, you need to add option when you're compiling your code. Okay, when you're compiling, not when you're linking your file. And it's a -G. I will give you more option for debugging in next parts. Okay, but in this part you can need just add -G or -G to command of compile your code. Okay, to that command that compiles your code and create your object files. Okay, in this make file I have just one line of command, and you should add -G here. Okay, save your file, clean your project, and another time make your file. Okay, like before, create your output file. Okay, I have my output. It's the output. Let's see my main code here. Don't show you. I have a simple C programming by multiply and divide function, just like previous part. Okay, I have some simple parts, and I want debug my project. Okay, I want debug my project. Let's debug my project. And how can I debug my project in terminal, in command line interface? Okay, if you want to debug an output file, okay, an output file, your execute file, you need just write Gdb and name of your executable file. Okay, Gdb and name of your executable file. If you press enter, now you are in Gdb and debugger. Okay, you are in Gdb and debugger, and you can write some commands. Okay, commands here. But let's talk about some simple commands. For first command, we have run. Okay, what's run? Run, like running your code in terminal, runs your code. Okay, if I press enter, it run my code. Okay, it will run my code. Another time run. Okay, if you press run, you can run your code. Okay, it's output. Okay, here it's my output file. Okay, so let's write about run. Run. What does the run? Run will run, or let's say Gdb will run your code just like running in terminal. But you may have seen that when I want to debug my code, I need more commands and more facilities for debugging. For example, I want to run my code step by step and line by line, and I need to see my variable in debugging. I need to see my function returns when I want to debug. I need to see my register in my processor. I need to see my memory in debugging and a lot of other things. But just run your code like terminal. Okay, how can I Control L for deleting? How can I see my code and step through my code line by line and other things like debugging in a graphical environment? Okay, and the first important command is start. Okay, if I write start and press enter, now I have my debugging output. Okay, and I want to run other commands. Okay, I don't want to talk about all of these parts. For example, here is your assembly code, disassembly. It's disassembly part. Okay, you have some information about your breakpoints and what's breakpoint. I will show you what's breakpoints and, for example, watch points or catch points. You have your registers. Okay, for example, here you have registers from your Intel processor. You have your source code, some parts of your source code. Okay, you have some other information about, for example, a stack or threads that's about your operating system. Okay, on the local variable. I wanna just talk about this part. Okay, your source now. Okay, so let's do write what's a start. Start will run your code, but or will stop stop in first line of your code. What's first line of your code? Here in your C or C++ program is your main. Okay, your operating system and your CPU start running your code from your main. Okay, from your main function. Okay, but you saw that when you run the run in GDB will run all of your code. Okay, but when you type start and press enter, will run your code but stop in first line of your code. Okay, and now you can step through and step over your files. Okay, line of your code. Okay, but what's the other commands? An important command is next. Okay, next, or the abbreviated form, just n. Okay, n or next. When you type next and press enter, you can step through your code. Okay, so I'm in line 3 from my code. Okay, in the int main, write next, press enter. Now I'm in line 5. Okay, not line 4, because line 4 just is a declaration. It's not an assembly code or code in your program. Okay, it's just a declaration. And when you type another time n or next or n, in this time n, not next. Okay, and press enter. Now you are in line 6. Okay, you are in line 6 and you are running your code. Okay, with next or n. So let's do write what's next. run line of your code and stand or stop on the next line. But sometimes your line is just a declaration and a step, for example, from 3 to 5. But when you have a running line, when you write n or next and press enter, you will go and you are taken to next line. Okay, another time I can write start, press enter, press Y for accept this line, press enter. Another time I'm in line 3. Okay, I'm in line 3. So how can I quit and exit from debugging? With a simple command, quit. Okay, just with quit you can press enter, press Y for approve and accept, press enter. Now I'm in terminal. Okay, for example pwd, I'm in terminal. Okay, so write gdb name of your output file, executable file, press enter. You are in gdb. Now press start or run. Okay, I want to type start, press enter. Another time I'm in line 3 in my main, start of my main function, and I'm in debugging environment. Okay, as you can see, when you download and copy gdb init in your home directory, you will have variable in your debugging environment. Okay, you will have a variable, for example what's a b c d. But how can I print my variable with a command? Okay, with a command, because if you didn't have gdb init in your home directory, you would not have these variables here or environment like this. And if you want to see your local variable, you can just type info and local. Okay, info is a command for get some information from gdb. Okay, info and local means local variable, and press enter. You will have value of your variables. Okay, value of your variables with info and local. You can write info and variables. Okay, gdb will give you a lot of variables. Okay, you will have a lot of variables in all of your files. Okay, it's global variables. You have a lot of variables, but many of time we just need just local variables. Okay, another time info locals, press enter. Okay, I will have my variables. Okay, we have another command in gdb, and it's step, or abbreviated form just s or step. Okay, and we can use a step for stepping in my code. Okay, like next. But what's the difference between step and next? Another time, let's start my code. Okay, as you can see, let's do a step with n and next in some line. Next. Now I'm in line 8. Okay, I'm in line 8. If I press n or next and press enter, I go to line 9. Okay, run line 8 and go to line 9. Okay, but if I press a step, I'm in main C, okay? I'm in main C and I'm in line 9. If I press enter and press enter, I will go to function, okay? I will go to function. As you can see in line 9, I have a calling function, okay? I have a calling function, calling divide function, okay? If you pressed N, you would go to line 10, but if you write step and press enter, you will go to the sub function to divide, okay? So let's define step. Let's write the abbreviation form here. For example, here abbreviation form of next is N, or abbreviated form of step is S. You can just write S, okay? But what's different between a step and next? Okay, first, like next, it's a like next, okay? But if you had a function call in current line, when you want run step, okay? For example, here we had a function call in line, okay? Calling divide function. If you have a function call in the current line, in the current line, Gdb would take you to that function, sometimes we say step to a step, okay? Sometimes in some environment and some ID you say step to this command, okay? And it will step to you and take you to a function that is in your current line, okay? But when you write next, you step over your function, okay? And you step to next line. It's not important you have a function in your line or you don't have a function in your line, okay? And it's the difference between step and next, okay? And another time I can run another time next. I'm in line 3 in divide. Another time next. I write double and go to last line of my divide function another time, and I return to line 10 in main, okay? In main source file, okay? Now I'm in main, okay? So another time, if I press next instead of a step, I will go to line 11, okay? I will go to line 11, okay? Another time, let's start my compiling. For example, let's give to this line. In this line, I have a function printf, but if I press S or a step and press enter, it will return me an error, okay? Cannot display I outputs because you didn't compile that file that have printf, okay? I said the first of part, if you want to have a debugging, you should debug your code with -g, but those library that have your functions like printf didn't compiled, have not compiled with -g, and you don't have information about debugging. Okay, when you add -g, you will have information about debugging. Okay, but I don't have information about printf. Let's another time start my code. Another time I'm in line 3 in my main file, next to a function, for example here multiply. If I press S or a step, I will be taken to multiply function. Okay, and run my code to return to main file. Now I'm in line 9. If I press R or next, I step over function. Okay, so with a step I can go to the sub function. Go to the sub function. Okay, but we have another important command in GDB. Let's do run a step or S and step 2 multiply. Okay, but before that, let's do run my code to line 11. In this line I don't have a function called in current line. Okay, so there is no difference between next and a step in this line. Okay, if I press next or N, I go to 12. If I press S in this line, I don't have function, I will go to line 13. Okay, step and next have differences when you have a function in your line. Okay, in your line. So let's do run my code. I'm in line 14 and I want run step or S. Okay, press enter. I'm in divide function. So how can I close from function and back to the upper function, to my main function? Okay, just with finish or fin. fin is abbreviated form, but the complete name of this command is finish. If I press enter, I will back to my source. Okay, let's do start my project another time. I'm in main. Let's do run my code until a function. Okay, in this line I have a function. I'm in line 8. Okay, I'm in line 8. I should write S for a step into. I'm in multiply function in another file. Let's do type fin for finish and run finish. Another time I'm in line 8. I'm not in line 9. Okay, I'm not in line 9. But if you want to go line 9, you need just press next another time or just step. Okay, because one time you go and you went to multiply function and return. In this time, if you write a step and press enter, you will be taken to line 9. Okay, so what's the finish or fin? It's finish or abbreviated form fin, or in some environment you can see a step out. Okay, another name is a step out. Run your code with GDB. Will run your code until end of your function. For example, you are in divide function, will run your code until end of your function, that's divide. Okay, after that what we'll do, we'll take you to color function. For example, here, the color function, for example, in my main file here is main, okay, and I will go to multiply, but finish return me to color function to main, okay, another time to main. It returns me back to color function or previous function, okay, to color function and stop, okay, and stop, but you will not have return value. Until another time enter step command, okay. So for example, assume you are in line 9, you want to find the value of 10 divided by 5, and after running this line you will have 2 in B, okay, you will have 2 in B because 10 divided by 5 is 2, okay. Let's do a step, okay, S for a step to divide function, press enter. I'm in for divide function, for example, I'm in line 3, okay. Let's do type fin for finishing or a step out, press enter. I'm another time in line 9, but the value of B is this value, okay, it's not 2, okay. Another time type S or step and press enter. Now I have B as 2, okay. Now I'm in line 10, next line of 9, okay, and the value of B is 2, okay. So when you write finish, you will be returned to the color function, but you don't have the return value. What's return value? If you want to know what's return value, you have a lot of information and other informations about assembly programming, compiler, generating code by compiler, and other things. And I didn't say, and I have not said about this information until now, okay. But I will give you a lot of information about, for example, assembly programming in your processor in this course, about ARM processor and compiling process, and I will give you a lot of information about returning value from functions, okay. But in this part, I just want to give you some information about debugging, okay, just some information about debugging. And there is another important thing in Gdb. For example, when you run next, you can step over your code just one line. You can write next and 2, and I'm in line 15. I will go to line 17, okay. You can give an option to your command. For example, let's do another time start. I'm in line 3, okay. I'm in line 3. Let's do, for example, I'm in line 5, okay. If I press N or next and, for example, 5, I'm in line 5 now, but for example 5 or 6, okay, and press enter, and this time I'm in line 11. Okay, but there is another important thing in the GDB, and it's breakpoint or other things, for example, watch point or catch point. I don't want to talk about watch point or catch point in this part. I just want to talk about breakpoint. Okay, what's breakpoint? For example, let's do what's break. The command is break. Okay, when you write break and name of your file, for example, from main.c, here is main.c file, and for example 15, line 15. Okay, line 15. If I press enter and write info and breakpoints, okay, info and breakpoints, and press enter, I have a breakpoint, the type of breakpoint, in main function and line 15. Okay, how can I go to this line 15 just by one command? What's the command? The command is continue. Okay, if you create a breakpoint by break, okay, and write continue, okay, write continue and press enter, you will take into line 15, because in this line I have a breakpoint. Okay, let's do another time. Start my code in GDB, info breakpoints. I have a breakpoint in line 15. I'm in line 3. If I write continue or abbreviated form, just C, okay, just C, and press enter, now I am in line 50. Okay, I know you have seen breakpoints in your debugging before this tutorial, but if you want to create a breakpoint in your code in GDB in terminal mode, you should write break or just B. Okay, break or the abbreviated form just B. Okay, but how can I add a breakpoint, for example, in multiply function? Okay, for example, in multiply function, I want to add a breakpoint in line 3 of multiply function. Let's start my code another time and type B and mul.c and, for example, line 3. Press enter, press info and breakpoints. I have another breakpoints in source directory mul.c, line C. Okay, I am in line 3. Another time, if I press C or continue, okay, and press enter, now I'm in multiply function in line 3. Okay, in multiply function in line 3. It's breakpoint, and I know you have a lot of information about breakpoints, but with these commands you can add a breakpoint to your code. Okay, let's do another time, for example, run finish step. I'm in line 9. If I another time press continue, enter continue, I will go to this function and line 3 of multiply. Okay, so how can I clear my breakpoints? Just by clear command you can delete all of your breakpoints. Okay, press clear will delete the breakpoint just in your line. Okay, just if you have a breakpoint in line 9, clear will clean your breakpoint in this line. Let's another time run my code, and another time type info and breakpoint. Now I have 2 breakpoints. Okay, but by delete command, okay, by delete command you can delete all of your breakpoint. Okay, delete, press enter, delete all breakpoints, press Y for accept, and another time info breakpoints, you have no breakpoints now. Okay, or watch points. Okay, what's watch points? I give you some information about watch points in next parts. Okay, but another time I can for example add a breakpoint, for example, by this command break and name of my function, for example div. Okay, break and div. Now I have a breakpoint start of divide function. Okay, and if I continue my code, I will go to divide function. Okay, and for example finish from my code. Okay, I can just write break or be an line of your code. Okay, for example line 11 or line 12. Okay, if I didn't give the function source and file source of your breakpoint, it will create a breakpoint here. Okay, b12. Now info breakpoints, I have a breakpoint in line 12. Okay, line 12. As you can see, I have a breakpoint in divide.c, and line 2 I can clear just this breakpoint. Okay, but typing clear name of function divide.c colon and the line number. Okay, divide.c to divide.c2. Press enter, deleted this breakpoint. Okay, deleted breakpoint. Another time info breakpoint. I don't have a breakpoint here. Okay, because I deleted my breakpoint. Okay, another time, for example, type clear main.c and line 12. I can clear this line. Another time info breakpoints, I have no breakpoint now. Okay, so I can create a breakpoint with b or a break and delete my breakpoint, all of my breakpoint with delete, or just one breakpoint with clear command. Okay, you can create breakpoint, for example, in your other source files, for example in multiply or divide or other source that you have. You can create breakpoint just in a function break and name of your function. Okay, name of your function, and you can clear all of your breakpoint. You can create a breakpoint in your assembly line. Okay, but I don't give you information about this breakpoint. Okay, it's so easy. You can write break star and address of your assembly line. Okay, but because I didn't give you, I have not I've not given any information about assembly programming. I don't give you information about breakpoint for assembly source. Okay, but I will give you information about GDB, a lot of information about GDB in next parts. Okay, after study about assembly programming, computer architecture, memory structure of your processor and other things. Okay, you need more information about your computer architecture to have more information about debugging. Okay, but this was a brief introduction about GDB. You can earn more information in GDB debugging manual. Okay, GDB debugging manual. There is GDB manual online. Let's do right Gdb manual. Okay, here is Gdb documentation, and you can study about Gdb in this documentation. Here, for example, Gdb user manual. For example, about stopping, and for example, breakpoints. How can I set a breakpoint? A lot of information about breakpoints. Okay. But in the next part, in this tutorial, I will give you much more information. Don't worry about debugging. I know it's a very brief introduction about Gdb, but I will give you more information in next part. And thank you to watching this part. From next part, I will start talking about programming in your microcontroller. Okay, in your ARM microcontroller by GCC in Linux. Okay, in Linux, and I will give you a lot of information. How can I compile my project and create my project with Gdb in Linux operating system, in terminal or in text editors. And in these 13 parts, we had 13 parts about some prerequisites about programming, in this C programming in Linux and terminal. And now you have some information about programming in Linux. Okay, it's enough for starting my programming in microcontroller, and from next part I will start programming for microcontroller. Okay, thank you very much and see you soon.